You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian, and Keith Cheatham, bringing it to you another week. You know, I noticed something, guys, in that intro.
Huh? What was it?
I think we need some new video.
What?
We've been going with that for over a year and a half now. We just need a new intro, an updated intro.
Why?
Not like the music. The music's gonna stay the same. I love that music.
Yeah.
I mean, just listen to that. Just jam out.
That's good.
Just,
I like that choice.
But
rocking it out.
what's wrong with the pictures? Why do you want to change everything?
Maybe because you're not in them, Keith.
True.
You're only in like one part of it from like one of our trial run episodes. Maybe I want to add you into it. Maybe I want you to be a part of us completely.
We need to get that.
Would you be in favor of that, Keith?
Well, of course he would.
I would push the "You Complete Me" button, but you don't have that.
I've got show me the
yeah,
money.
you got.
Show me the money.
Oh, it didn't. Is it going?
Oh,
Is it?
it should be.
I pushed it.
Push it.
It's
Show me the money.
there. It
it
is. There it is.
Maybe I just didn't hit it hard enough.
didn't
I don't
hit.
know.
You got to hit it hard enough.
Gotta hit hard.
That's right, guys. Another great week here. We went a little short last week.
A little.
We're here to give you full hours of entertainment. Okay, we went short.
I mean,
Right.
and
know,
this week we're gonna go long.
going
one
long.
short one compared to all the
Hard in
times
the
we go
paint.
over. So
That's true. People were probably, I
They're
didn't
like,
even.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They might have appreciated
They
that.
probably did.
Yeah.
Because they were probably getting ready for their July 4th holiday last week.
True.
We totally missed out on mentioning anything about our
No,
good
we
old
shouldn't,
Independence Day.
Because
Well, that's true.
you
June
know.
19th is really what we should have been celebrating. Juneteenth.
I don't think we should celebrate anything ever again.
That was like a month ago.
Ever.
It's true.
I think
Keith's
all
right.
holidays, all religions, and all political views should just be banned. We should just be plain, just
Plain what?
I don't like
That's
just like
exactly-
neutral, like
yeah.
gray, just
That's exactly what the
blobs
Antichrist
of-
is going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's just going to fill those voids
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
He already
Yeah.
does. So it's like, yeah.
we're
All
just
right.
gonna be like mindless, no personality.
One world government.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that we're talking about controversial subjects because, well, we're finally at a film that deserves our
I
attention.
felt we
All
should,
of a sudden,
you know,
it's controversial.
all of a
Yeah,
sudden- yeah.
It wasn't a couple years ago.
When we started reviewing the Best Picture winners, this movie wasn't controversial.
No.
Over the course of the 12 weeks it's taken us to get to the 12th Best Picture winner, Gone with the Wind, it has now become very controversial. But we wanted to review every Best Picture winner, and that includes Gone with the Wind,
and
and
I
we weren't
just-
going to skip it.
No, of course not. We got to include it. And I'll even say, we have some dissenting, arguments.
Yeah, but not for those reasons.
Not
No,
arguments,
no.
just opinions.
Exactly.
Opinions.
Dissenting opinions, I should say, is a
Yeah.
better way to phrase it. But we're not all collectively agreeing on this film, which I think is good.
For the most part, we haven't.
Yeah.
I mean, we have had a few. The last couple, I think we actually have for
True.
once.
Mhm.
But now we're back to normal, and we
We're back to normal. Everybody's at each other's throat.
yeah, you know.
So that's right, guys. So here it is, without further ado, finally, our review of the classic Gone with the Wind.
The Best Picture winner marathon continues with what is one of the biggest, most prestigious, and legendary Best Picture winners of all time. That's right, Best Picture winner number 12, Gone with the Wind. Everyone has heard of Gone with the Wind, and the film itself has found itself shrouded in controversy presently. From HBO Max pulling the film to add a disclaimer to claims of its subtle racism and romanticization of the antebellum South, one of the most lauded films in cinematic history has come under fire. With that said, Red Moon set out to review each Best Picture winner, and we still intend to do so, including Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind was the most ambitious film project ever attempted until that point. Showcased in glorious color, for which it won an honorary Oscar, with mesmerizing cinematography, the best actors of its day, and a whopping runtime of nearly 4 hours, Gone with the Wind was actually the grand sweeping epic Hollywood always tried to sell their biggest films as. Starring Clark Gable as Rhett Butler and Vivian Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara, and based on the novel of the same name, written by Margaret Mitchell, Gone with the Wind is an epic romance and tragedy told from the perspective of plantation owners living during the Civil War and the following Reconstruction era. As a film on its own merits, Gone with the Wind stands as the greatest accomplishment in filmmaking of its time. And despite any political viewpoints, one way or another, this still holds true. Clark Gable at the prime of his career is invigorating to watch, giving one of the best performances of his career. There have been many rebellious leading men throughout Hollywood history, but they all started with Clark Gable. Leigh as the young and often selfish Scarlett O'Hara likewise gives the role gravitas, instilling the sense of survival that is a running theme through the film. Hattie McDaniel, the first African American to be nominated for and win an Oscar, too stands the test of time with her role of Mammy, a character often criticized as a stereotypical devoted slave doting on her charges, yet despite some unsavory aspects of the character is still one of the strongest in the film and one of the best acted. On the technical front, Gone with the Wind was one of the first Technicolor films. Its use of color through grading and design brings the film to life in ways only The Wizard of Oz would be able to compete with many color films of the time noticeably less clean looking. This, as mentioned, earned the film an honorary Oscar. Its set pieces are amongst the best in the industry at the time and hold up still today, bringing to life the Civil War-era South with its luxurious production design and direction, earning the film another Oscar. The script, which too was awarded an Oscar, is still considered one of the best adaptations of a novel. And while some scenes suffer a bit of bloatedness, and it's possible the film could have been shortened in some areas, there's no doubt the story is good enough to hold through its near 4-hour length. Though worth all of its praise, Gone with the Wind does indeed still have flaws. Yes, the acting is often impeccable, but there are plenty of supporting casts that are not. As stated before, while an invigorating watch, the runtime is daunting, and not every part of the film can justify it. Likewise, while the themes of survival, humanity, and love are timeless, how they are displayed and come across in the film aren't entirely timeless. Some of this comes from its poor depiction of slaves, who through the film are often portrayed as happily doing their jobs. It can be disturbing and misleading, and the film does often cast a tone of sorrow for the Old South, but the film is also told from the perspective of a Southern belle written by a woman who was raised by the very type of people the film is about. This doesn't make some of its glossing over of the horrors of slavery acceptable, but it was also never the point of the story either, and the themes and message the film wished to convey do come across. Ultimately, Gone with the Wind is a product of its time, and while certainly more could have been done to showcase the evils that occurred during the period, it also very plainly doesn't praise or exonerate these things either. It attempts not to focus too much on the politics of the South, but instead on the lives of the people there, and makes a case for both good and evil people alike to have been born, raised, and lived during this period. Outside of the politics, the film speaks for itself on its accomplishments, having done things never thought of before in film. Its flaws may shine through like a light through the cracks now, but it was as close to perfect filmmaking as was possible in 1939, and still holds up today in ways movies before and after it never will. I give Gone with the Wind 4 out of 4 stars.
There it is. We agree. Well, we have to collectively. 4 out of 4 stars for that classic. That's right. Gone with the Wind.
I just thought if I rated it 4 stars, someone somewhere would be furious. That's
true.
That's true. I'm not that person, though. So.
No, Sean's ready to upset.
No, I didn't think either of you two would be furious. I just figured,
I'm always 100%. I will back whatever your review says, whether I agree or disagree, because you give our official review.
Well, I mean, I try to back up why.
Well, and I think, for one, just to give any of our naysayers out there, the fact of the matter is that you take everybody's opinion into account. When you take our collective opinions, but also other people's too.
I'm sorry. I was just watching Keith's feed of our live feed, and the subtitles said, "You gave God with the Wind 4 stars."
Yeah. Hey,
I don't know how to turn
movie.
those off. Like anytime I mute it, they pop up and it annoys me.
Well, they automatically do it.
Well, that's stupid.
Because you have to give closed captioning. You have to have that accessibility feature. Facebook offers it freely.
I know, but there should be a like if I'm watching a movie, you could turn it on or off.
I think you can. I think it's like the comments. You have to swipe it.
I did, and it doesn't do nothing.
Have subtitles on mine.
Maybe it's a setting.
I can't figure out how to do it, and it makes me mad.
You know what? There's a lot of people out there deaf that are watching, and they actually appreciate
They
it.
Well,
were
no,
like-
I'm not saying it's bad.
They've
They're
never
there.
seen God with the Wind.
Never.
though.
Yeah, and we love that one.
Yeah.
I mean,
4 stars. For God.
So let's start it.
God.
Let's get into it knee deep. The fact
Knee
is,
deep.
let's talk about. We'll probably get there to the point of the controversy.
I kind of broke my review into two parts, like the technical aspects and why it was considered such an innovative movie, and the fact that it was like it did things that no other movie before it had done. And then like I kind of talked about some of the more racial aspects later, because those really aren't kind of the point of the movie. The point of the thing was to try to show this quasi-romantic, tragic movie about a group of people, mainly Scarlett and Rhett Butler, but and like just that romance that
Yeah.
is weird. I mean, the whole movie is like it's fun. I mean, I give it 4 stars, but I will fully admit that Scarlett is a terrible person. But even the author of
No,
the
that was
even Margaret Mitchell, who wrote the book, said, "Oh yeah, she's selfish and terrible." So.
Well, and I will say that's
She's a
actually
brat, yeah.
she is.
Yeah.
She's a spoiled.
but she's
brat.
meant to be. So
Well, and that was the only thing I kind of told Keith this when he came to record the review. I was talking to him. I was like, this is really one of the first acclaimed movies that I know of in that era. That is really about an anti-hero.
Yeah.
It's like I don't really have any point in the film where I think I was rooting for Scarlett.
No.
The only time maybe was right after the intermission when the war is over and you kind of have them coming to terms with, we've got to get on with life and we've got to rebuild our life. And I was kind of like, okay, well maybe now she's learning. The sweat of her brow is what's going to allow her to get. No, she falls
no.
right back into her.
she
her
connives
pretentious
ways into trying to find somebody else to get back up. And that's the thing. As much as you could say like she's not a good person, like the acting was good.
Oh,
I will give
yeah,
her that.
absolutely.
Like the character itself it is terrible, and she's meant to be. But I will say Vivian Lee does give a good performance.
Okay, here's another thing: is it Vivian Lee or Vivian Leigh?
I thought it was Lay.
Is it either
I don't know.
or?
Well, when I
Potato,
googled it,
potato?
when I googled it said Lee. That's why
Okay.
I say Lee.
I've
So.
always heard it pronounced Leigh, but I think
Okay.
I don't think it matters.
I
I think
don't-
it's a either or.
I don't know. When I don't know, I googled pronunciation and it said Vivian Lee. So I was like, okay, well that's
Well,
what
then
I'm
you're
going with.
probably right.
I don't know.
Google's
as
always
usual.
right.
Google's not always right. So
No.
Well, all right, Sean. First off, I gave it 3.5 out of 4,
Mhm.
and I'll get to that a little bit here in a
Yeah.
sec. But Sean, I think you gave it probably the lowest of all of
I
us.
gave it 2.5
Oh,
out
okay.
of 4.
okay.
And so you want to
Now I
You're
wanna
going to make me
yeah
dive in.
divulge.
Yeah.
I give it 2.5 because the first hour and a half to 2 hours of the film I thought were fantastic.
Yeah.
The everything until the war is over is what really captivated me and drew me into the story.
Yeah.
I loved the fact that all of this stuff was transpiring in the midst of this war, and the fact that the war comes to where they are, burns the town down, and they have to leave. Like all this stuff that's happening, I felt like it was action-packed for a romance, but the romance was still there. I could feel it coming. I knew it was there. Yes, I felt the like this bratty nature of Scarlett, and I kept thinking, surely, like, what's going to happen is the war is going to ravage everything that she's come to know and love of her life, and she's going to have to grow up. She's going to be forced
Right.
to become an adult,
Right.
and act like an adult. And I saw all of that up and like even when she shoots the guy that's intruding into the house, I'm like, oh man, that's really going to like put her on this path to
I gotta
growing
fend
up
for
a little
myself,
bit.
yeah.
And I'll admit I had seen this movie a long time ago.
Same here.
And I did not remember half of this movie.
Yep.
So I'm going into it kind of with new eyes,
Yeah.
and I'm looking for this to happen.
Yeah.
And it never happened. She fell right back into it. But the second half of the movie, I watched 2 hours of it one night, and I watched the other 2 hours the last night. And I mean, the last half of the movie bored the absolute hell out of me. And even for a romance, you take this war movie almost, not really a war movie,
Yeah.
but it's in the midst of all this stuff that's going on. It almost, to me, it had like a Braveheart nature. It's a romance movie, but it's in the middle of a freaking war that's going on
Yeah.
and throughout history. So I had that feeling, and then the second half happened, and they finally get married, and she's going back and forth between him and Ashley. And Ashley's a dude, by the way. and all these things happen. She wants a baby. She doesn't want a baby. They have a baby. Baby dies. Kid dies. Like all this stuff happened, and I'm just like, this is like
tragic.
This
stuff,
it is tragic, yes, but I did not feel anything the second half of the movie for these people.
And it's weird because it's like
it wasn't entertaining to me.
You do see, I will say, in terms of what I think we see in a normal story arc and plot devices today, you want to see this character kind of take a well-rounded, turn, and you kind of get that at the very end of the film with her all-encompassing, like as soon as Rhett leaves her and is the classic line, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And it's just like now she has nothing, but she goes back home.
That's okay. She's going to get him back.
Well, that's tomorrow's another day.
Tomorrow's another day.
Well,
and I'm like, there she is. She's redeemed. The one person in the movie that should not have a redemption story or should not have an uptick
but
at
that's
the end.
Thing. I mean,
And I'm like, finally, he finally says what we've all been wanting him to say, but why couldn't he have said it an hour and a half ago? And I just, like, you took me through
he loved
all
her.
of that. I know that, but I didn't want to see that many ups and downs. I just wanted it to be over.
And again, I think this, kind of going back to just those earlier days of Hollywood, I think when you're encompassing an epic such as like Cimarron or Cavalcade, you're talking about the span of several years. And I think the other hard part about this is because it was based on a novel. And I think with them trying to be accurate to what the novel represented, you maybe get a little bit more of a, when you go in to read a novel, I mean, this is part of the reason we can't stand the Harry Potter films, is the fact that they don't go deep enough, and that some of those scenes and characters are much more well developed. Whereas this film, I think, takes it there
too much. I think
yes, and I think in as much as it tried to adapt, it kind of lost some of the pivotal points. Because I would agree, I don't think necessarily that she is redeemed as much as she's still on this search and pursuit of that redemption. But at the same time, I think
she's
that's
just an idiot.
Well, but I felt like that led the
just
viewer to like almost believe that, oh, well, she's going to come out on top, or she's going to, and I'm just like,
people have ups
I
and
don't want her
downs.
to.
Well,
after everything I've seen, I'm like, I don't want that.
And that's
for her.
the point that I think is not confusing as much as it is. I didn't know how to feel at the end of the film, because usually in a film like this where you are rooting or even rooting against or for someone, you kind of want to be left with a, okay, I'm happy with where this character is at, or, no, I'm glad they got what they got. Yeah. And at the end of this, I was just kind of like, what was the point of all this?
Well,
we just literally just watched the life of these
It wasn't
Southerners.
a matter of me not getting what I wanted. It was just a matter of being confused. I'm like, what's the point?
And I think that's where some of the translation gets lost. Is the whole point of the story is just supposed to be a slice of like these Southerners, that time period in their lives, and it really is just supposed to be straightforward. Like, these are what they went through, because Margaret Mitchell based the novel off the stories of her grandparents, who were plantation owners in the South, and she said, growing up, she didn't even realize the South had lost until she got older, because of the way her grandparents talked about the glory of the South and all that, which is also where some of the controversy of that film's racist, because it glorifies the South.
Which we're going to get into that
but
in a sec.
we will. But I think that's where it gets lost in translation, is she wrote this story as just a straight, I'm pulling out exactly what people who lived back then told me. This is what the perspective of these plantation owners were, and that's what this movie and that novel was about. And I think that's fine to do something like that, but when you tell a story, especially on film, you have to lead the viewers somewhere. And I think back then, people praised it because they did love that, because it was fresher and it was something that, they enjoyed, just like Cimarron and Cavalcade. I think they enjoyed
the story of just dropping a camera in that time period was interesting. And of course, I still think it holds up. The cinematography is gorgeous.
I agree.
The color is absolutely beautiful. And
technical aspects of the film, it definitely
sold that time period.
It blew everything that came before it out of the water. And I mean, even movies that came after Gone with the Wind, I mentioned in my review, It and Wizard of Oz used color in a way that even movies that came after it didn't do for several years. Like, they weren't capable of capturing that same style and the same technique.
I think I understood, if you go back to the beginning, and again, this is kind of what's rooted in, the controversy of the film and what it stands for. Because if you even just go back to the opening crawl of the film of, we're going to take you back to a time of the, the last days of the chivalrous knights here in the Americas. And, it's a
I was like,
time,
where are they?
Yeah, well, it's a time.
Well, they're gone. That's what
I know they're gone with the wind, but I
yeah.
thought I was going to see them go with the wind, and I never saw them to begin with.
That was Rhett.
He's the last one.
He was gone with the wind.
He was the exact antithesis.
He was gone with the fog at the end.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting the hell out of here.
He was the one that was like, I'm gonna I'm one bringing in that sweeping change.
Yeah.
I care about myself. Screw this old timey, favor.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought his character was the more interesting one.
I agree.
To see
Definitely.
throughout the film, and I cared more about him. I cared a little bit about Ashley. I thought he was reverent early on, and I looked at him as, okay, I understand that why Scarlett admires him, but she only admires him because it's something she can't have. Versus the fact that I think later on when he comes back and then he admits his feelings for her, and I'm like, okay, I know you're trying to tell this story of how much of a seductress she is and a temptress, but at the same time, I felt, okay, now you just made me dislike Ashley.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Rhett and Ashley's wife are the two characters that are by far the most upstanding.
That's what I was
going
to say is Rhett, Melanie, and then Mammy had him.
Yes.
Those three characters are honestly, I think, the only three I actually really liked, and I thought they were actually the better three. The three actors that were the best. Not to knock Vivian Leigh, because I think she did a good job, but I do think those other three actors were the best in the film.
Agreed. All right, so let's kind of get over into the controversies of the film. Obviously, Hattie McDaniel receiving the first nomination for a black character or for a black actor and the first to win. But it's also told that, of course, she was not even allowed to be in the same room as the ceremony itself. Yeah. She just was able to come in, accept the award, and then leave.
Yeah. So and there's mixed things about that too, because when I was researching everything for our Tinseltown trivia, I found one thing that said she was there. She just was not allowed to sit at the same table as the other actors and actresses.
That's actually with HBO Max, that whole 5-6 minute long thing, that beginning with the president from Turner Classic Movies or whatever.
Yeah.
She said that she was in a table by herself in the corner of the room.
Yeah.
But I have also read that she wasn't allowed to be there. So
at
now
all.
I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, we don't really know what the truth is on that.
Some conflicting historical inaccuracies.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is I think you outlined it perfectly in your review about how, for one, to take this film out of context, and I think this is what we see as a problem with everybody who's wanting to rewrite history or at least demonize history. It's fine to be critical and to demonize parts of history, but to completely erase and eradicate certain things within film or within art or within even, historical, markers, monuments. It's like, the problem I think that you get into is that now you're trying to change the minds and the perceptions of people who existed in that time. Because another thing that people fail to talk about, which was another fact that we found interesting, was the premiere was being held in Atlanta, and Hattie McDaniel was not invited, obviously because of it being
Atlanta,
deeply,
Georgia,
deeply in the South. Yeah. And Clark Gable even said that he was going to boycott the premiere and not going to go because of that. And it was Hattie McDaniel that told him, no, your heart's in the right place, but I want you to go. I want you to be there. And
she was proud of her representation, because
yes.
she said, I'd rather get paid thousands of dollars to play a slave than to have had to have been one. And for her, it was a matter of there weren't civil rights in her age. So the fact that she was a huge part of that movie, that she won an Oscar,
garnered the respect.
It went a long way towards promoting the cause of civil rights. So she was proud to know that, you have to pick your battles. And I'm not saying that the depictions in the movie are right, because there are a lot of depictions of black people just happily doing their jobs as slaves.
To serve,
and that's not right. But she knew this is a one way to help promote the cause and reach civil rights, because by having black actors and by doing the performance she did and winning an Oscar, it proves that black people were no less than white people or white actors, and it helped promote, and granted, I know it took another 20 years, sadly, before they got civil rights, but it was part of that battle. So to try to hide Gone with the Wind as any other monument, you can't learn from the past if you hide it. And if you don't learn from the past, then you eventually repeat it, and no one wants that. So it's not good to try to hide film and things like that. It's better to show it and say, hey, this was wrong, but watch it and form your own opinion.
And learn from it.
One of the things about
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
One of the things about that disclaimer with HBO Max, which we've gone over before, but this time I actually got to see the monologue and listen to it, and it's just a bunch of babbling. But one of the things that she says in her monologue that really bothered me was she says this movie does everything to promote the nostalgia of the South, but does nothing to really showcase the horrors of slavery. And my issue with that, and with that kind of thinking when going into a film that was shot back in 1939, but also a film that's about something almost, 100 so years before that. It's you've got a story that is not about slavery.
Right.
It's about the South. So yes, it's going to show nostalgia of the South. It's not going to show the horrors of slavery.
Right.
12 Years a Slave did that. Plenty of other films throughout Hollywood history have done that.
Right.
And that because that was their purpose.
Yes.
It's like, don't expect every film that has to do with that time period to showcase the horrors and the tragedies of slavery and what the African American people
And
went
I
through.
was going to say, I think it's doing a disservice to those people who intentionally were trying to. It's not like they were trying to gloss over slavery as if it didn't exist, but they
No.
also weren't trying to paint such an ugly picture where if you focus so much on the horrors of slavery, that
How can
all
you
of us
focus on this romance?
Well, exactly.
with
and
all
then,
of that, yeah.
Well, and again, exactly that. It's like, how do you then shift the focus of the movie on something that is not the point of the
Right.
film? And Alone, it's about a novel, or it's based on a novel about a woman's perception of what she received from her grandparents.
Yes.
So you still can't fault the material in the fact that it didn't it's not about glossing over the horrors of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
It's about putting it in perception of who wrote the material and what the story itself is about. It's not to sit there and glamorize it either and say, "See, look at the South. It wasn't that bad for black
great."
people."
Yeah.
And it's not to do that either. You
No,
know,
not at
that
all.
ignores the injustices as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also not right to fault the film for the injustices that it shouldn't. Have pointed out, because that's not what the film was. And so I think that's kind of where we come down. I think on just the people who are ridiculing this film right now and the people who are going after it. I mean, it's funny because here we are, Keith settling on 4 stars, I settling on 3.5, knocking it for certain, aspects. But even you, Sean, were just saying, I just didn't like the film.
Yeah.
2.5. It's like you just were not entertained.
I was
by
entertained by half of it,
Yeah.
and that's in the very, very end. That was
Well,
it.
and I even told Brandon before I recorded, I told him, like, I sent him a text actually, and I was like, I really, really considered giving this film 3.5, like he did, and that's before I even knew his score. And I was like, but then when I started thinking about all the movies that came before it and how much better this movie just did the things that Cimarron and Cavalcade couldn't, I was like, I felt it was worth that half star. That's where it came from for me.
No,
Right.
and I if that's how you feel,
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
the technical marvels of the film were again something that didn't take away at all. Mine was
No.
just the sheer lack of entertainment the second half of
It
the film.
really did not need to be 4 hours. I will give you that.
Yeah,
No.
and maybe that's something I get. A lot of the times when you're doing your reviews, like, you're taking into account that this was shot in 1939, and I am looking at it through a more modern day, I guess,
Yeah.
critical eye, and I'm looking at so many other movies that have told such an epic story in a
Yeah.
much quicker and shorter way and kept me entertained than this movie did. And I'm sitting here thinking, yes, it was 1939. It was very few of the movies that were written then were based on novels. Most of them were based on
Yeah.
plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there thinking, yes, I understand. They do have to try to fit everything into this, this whole novel into a movie. How are they going to do that? They didn't do it as well back then as they do today.
Yeah.
I don't feel.
I
and
agree.
that was part
I
of
do
my
agree with that.
star
I
rating
was like,
too.
well, if you give us about another 10 years, then we'll get to what truly is the most epic film of the Oscars, and that's been Her.
yes, yes.
And that is one that still easily holds up.
well,
absolutely.
11
And
wins, and it deserves every
Yeah.
single one of them.
Yep.
So
And it's still entertaining. I still think that one's one that.
I think that's one we'll all agree on.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because it's one where it's like it kind of the beginning is slower and it kind of takes a while to get into, but the moment you get into it and then you get this glorious chariot race,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're ending on a high note. This is
Yeah.
great, you
Yeah.
know, and it picks up at the end.
Well, and that's another
that's
thing.
that's a
I
great
think
thing.
Movies as they went along later, kind of, you did have the slower parts of the beginning, the exposition, and then like the climax and all the action towards the end. I've noticed with some of these earlier movies, it's like exposition, maybe something entertaining, exposition.
I was thinking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that the other night, and I
Yeah.
was thinking about just the fact that back then, going to the movie theater to see a movie, you put on your tuxedo, like you got dressed up to go to the movie theater. You
was an
planned on
event.
being there
Yeah.
for a while.
Yep.
Exactly, and I feel
There's
like
a reason
as
they
time,
have an overture and an intermission.
Yes.
Well, it was like
As-
going to the theater, but you're going to see a movie, like rather
Right.
than a play, you're
Right.
going to the
I
movie.
was thinking
yeah.
as time went on, people started viewing it more like entertain me and not just give me something to do this whole evening.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now, and that's when you start to see, and I hate to say that because the theater to me is something that I don't ever want to see it go away, and I want it to always be this thing, a social gathering, and a way to go see something together with friends and family. But yes, it's just 4 hours for a movie like this. Good God.
I know. It was definitely like one where you got to be like, I'm ready. It's going to be a marathon.
and while I still, like I said, I don't think it should have been 4 hours, but I will say it was an easier 4 hours to get through than the 3 hours of Cavalcade or Cimarron.
And again, this just so much of this goes into the marvel and the feat that it was in the presentation. The fact of the matter that you had the fantastic sweeping, scope of the whether that was the color of the film or, even the landscapes and the cinematography, it was all built into a package that thankfully I think brought people into the realm of what film was possible of achieving. Mm-hmm. And I think it really was one of those spectacles where you went and saw it and you were like, I've never seen anything like this before. Yeah. Like I can only imagine seeing this back then. And some of the crap that we've had to watch, and granted, I told Keith this, I said, maybe, just like the restoration with Wings, maybe there's a little bit, because of Gone with the Wind being such so highly acclaimed over the years, and maybe they've done so many restorations that it didn't look as good, obviously, as it does now. But even there's probably some other Best Pictures like Cimarron and Cavalcade that have not got that restoration treatment because they're not that entertaining.
Nobody gives a crap. Like nobody's going to go back and restore Cimarron. I'm sorry.
It's not worth it. But that's the thing is I think, it's nice to finally see sometimes. I mean, in some of those movies earlier on in the first decade of film, it was hard. It was hard to get through because it was like, I couldn't hear the audio. I'd have to strain to hear it, or I'd have to, squint to even realize, like, what is that picture? Yeah. Just because the quality wasn't that great. Yeah. And it's nice to finally be in an era of film where it's like, finally, the technology has caught up with what they're trying to convey. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice to finally be in that era. Because with Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz, I can't think of two better Best Pictures to showcase color.
Absolutely. A little fun fact I noticed a few minutes ago, but I just thought it was cool. Jacob did, when I mentioned like the actors, like the three best and Melanie, he mentioned Olivia de Havilland, who played Melanie Ashley's wife, is still living at 104 years old.
Wow!
So,
Happy birthday!
I thought that was kind of cool
awesome.
too. I was like, wow.
Wow, that's awesome.
I mean, all the other.
We'll read that she got COVID and passed
well,
away next week.
I will say that one. What was that one last week that was like survived the Holocaust but died of COVID? That's
that's sad.
Yeah. That's just terrible. All right, guys, let's move.
It's terrible. All right,
terrible.
We're done with that.
We're a movie podcast. We got to move on. Headlines. Let's talk about some headlines this week. Guys, we're moving off of color and film, and we're moving on to robots. They're taking over the
What
film
color
industry.
are the robots? Oh, they're Asian.
That's true, actually. They are. That's because the Asians are making them.
Right.
White people can't make robots.
No. Why would we add more?
We'd make them in our image, and then we'd get in trouble.
Well, no, we do deep fakes is what we do. It's like, who needs robots when we could just CGI George Lucas's face on some guy?
Okay, this is the point of contention because here it is. All of a sudden, we've had the conversation before about is CGI getting so well? This was even before deep fakes.
Is it getting too good that you no longer need actors?
Yeah, can they just voice themselves?
Well, are robotics so good that we can just make robots instead of actors?
No, I don't think so.
But what's her name? Erica.
Erica.
Yeah.
They're not doing this.
No, she's in a movie. She's in the movie B. It's a science fiction movie. She's playing a robot named Erica. So she's playing.
It's a B movie.
Yeah,
probably.
But my thing is, this is what I had to say when I read the article, because it's a science fiction movie about a man who makes a robot named Erica, and the robot Erica in real life is playing this robot named Erica. So I'm like, really, it's not
big
a robot.
Achievement.
Yeah, I'm saying it's not a robot playing something. It's an animatronic. I mean, like I said,
being an animatronic.
Yeah, Jurassic Park had an animatronic T-Rex, and nobody threw a big fit about that.
Yeah, didn't get an Oscar.
She's just
now. Wait a second.
Right?
Wait a second.
How do you accept an Oscar with little T-Rex arms?
You can't hold it. No, wait a second though.
Go ahead.
The T-Rex did not take on a human persona. The robot takes on a human persona.
The T-Rex played a T-Rex. This robot's playing a robot.
Yeah, well, we don't know that's what a T-Rex really looks like.
Okay, what about the animatronics in
They
Star
had
Wars?
feathers.
They
they
could
all
have
flew
had
away.
wings.
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
What about the animatronics in Star Wars? They played alien figures.
Oh,
That's the point.
there we go.
They were sentient.
That's true. Actually, you're right. C-3PO does look like a
Well,
humanoid.
no, that was a man.
That
in
was
a
a
costume.
real man.
He was in a costume. That wasn't an animal.
No,
R2D2
not in Phantom Menace.
That's news to Brandon.
R2D2 sometimes was animatronic and sometimes it was a midget.
Was Phantom Menace?
Hey, whoa,
was
whoa,
he-
whoa, whoa. Little person.
Little person. We got to be.
I don't know. The comedian I watch, he says he doesn't like to be called little person, so I'm gonna respect
Does
him.
he go with midget?
Does he call himself a midget?
He thinks little person's
Dwarf.
No, he goes with he thinks little person's like demeaning, like, oh, you're just a little person. That's part
Would
of
he
his
rather
joke,
you
though.
say, "Oh, you're just a midget"?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's less demeaning.
Okay.
Apparently,
I guess so.
He's
All right.
funny. I gotta think of his name, but he is hilarious.
But
But
here's the-
R2D2
okay,
was
so
a
the
midget
thing
in a
about-
tin can.
Well, it was C-3PO and Phantom Menace, was that a human?
okay,
was
no,
it-
that was animatronic.
See, all
Yeah.
right. But here's
because
the
he
thing.
didn't have the casing.
But here's the thing. With this, and I even brought this up before we hit, record. I
Jar
always say
Jar
hit
Binks
record
wasn't
before.
animatronic.
Oh gosh. Well,
Go
we knew
ahead.
early days of CGI were doomed. After
Okay,
that.
that movie
But-
came out at the same time that Lord of the Rings was being made. So you tell me what George Lucas's excuse
I-
was.
nothing. It's the same reason James Cameron decided to make Avatar, because he saw Peter Jackson do it better. No, here's the thing. So with this, we've already seen movies where, for instance, you have Bicentennial Man, where it's Robin Williams in a suit, but then you even have AI with Haley Joel Osment and CGI to make him look like
you mentioned
Ex
Ex Machina.
but Ex Machina with
Fantastic
Alicia
movie.
Vikander.
That's amazing.
And
I
I'm
love that
sorry,
movie.
but to me, when you have the human persona and then you just CGI animatronics or robotic parts, it looks way better than having a robot.
Well, that's because you're actually making the robots in the film look lifelike, because that's the point. Like
That's the whole point of
the
AI.
The whole point is the robots have gotten so advanced that you could mistake them as human. No one's going to mistake this robot as human. She looks like a sex doll, like we mentioned before.
Yeah,
She
I mean,
does.
it's
She's
not. To me, it was
terrible.
$70 million for this movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, take a sex doll and an Alexa,
Well,
and
that's
you've
how-
got Erica.
That's how much they cost. They cost $70 million. They're expensive.
They're not that expensive.
You know.
I mean,
He's-
before I
he's
got married, I
researched.
looked.
He Googled.
And they weren't even that good back
Google
then.
never
No.
lies.
So,
They weren't silicon
True.
back then.
so then, wait. So we're all in agreement, though, that this doll
Yeah, it's stupid.
does not look anything like what. I mean, the
Oh
fact that
Lord,
they're even
no.
talking
The
about it
picture
being.
of it
Because their
is-
whole idea
Yeah,
with
hold that,
absolutely.
hold that up
It's
to the
hideous.
camera,
Yeah,
Sean.
I'll
yeah.
try. Look, it's
It is.
hideous.
It doesn't even look like a person.
No, you got
It looks like a giant porcelain doll.
It's creepy looking. Oh my god. America.
I mean,
America.
maybe one day robots can replace actors, but it's not today, and it's not anytime soon.
Well, they're
because if
sitting
that's the
here-
best they can do,
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
For one, the fact that it's in a sci-fi movie, she's not even playing a real
Is that
person
Bono
like you said.
back there with her? Is that
Well, Bono is a
like
robot. Bono is a robot.
he's an android from the future.
the Joshua Tree?
But the thing is I also think that with this whole argument, they're talking about it being because of the age of COVID.
Oh, God.
Is this the way that Hollywood's going to reroute their problems with social distancing and
Yeah.
and not having actors,
Yeah.
on set, because now they're going to have to go with these other methods? And is this going to be the way to go? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
clearly, when you come up with a sci-fi story, you're automatically categorizing it as, well, they're not lifelike. We have to make some kind of element in this film work around the fact that she looks like she's
It
fake.
says she's 23. She's 23 years old.
What?
She has experience. She goes to the museums once a month to meet people. So she's a fun robot.
Huh.
That's what it says.
This literally sounds like they're trying to get you to buy her to take her out on a date.
Yeah.
They're not even setting her up like an actress.
No, it's just really. It's like it's a $70
Well,
million
I mean,
that's
ad.
the thing. Are actors really
advertisement.
robots?
The beginning.
That's what we
The
really
beginning of the
have to
article
ask.
does say that her hair and makeup will take way less time than a normal actor. So
She doesn't get sick, too.
Yeah, that was
yeah,
the big thing.
she's not going to get sick or come in late. So
Yeah, she's always there unless her batteries die. Then what are you gonna do?
she's always there until
Yeah.
Skynet
Oh
goes
wait,
live.
we gotta wait till Erica's charged up.
Oh, my
We were
gosh.
pushing back our shooting time 2 hours.
I mean, I just think this is a huge waste of money.
I do
Like,
too.
that's why I'm like, how many? Remember when we used to have, like, how many bottles of water could we give kids in Africa?
Yes,
The,
We're still working
the
on
Matt
that-
Damon thing.
we're still working
The
on that
Matt-
rating
yeah,
system.
we need the
Yeah.
Matt Damon rating system.
it was gonna be
I'm just wondering how many starving children in Africa could we feed
For
with
$70
$70
million?
million and just scrap this?
Now, what if it comes out and it's a great movie? What if it's a fantastic film?
how many African baby lives is it
I'm
worth?
just saying.
I mean, it could be an amazing movie, but I mean, she's not going to replace actors. The movie's
No.
about a robot, so it's like I'm going to watch the movie.
If they replace Chris Pratt with a robot, I'm never watching movies
That's
again.
Chris
I'm out.
Pratt. If they replace
I'm
Ben Affleck, I'm in.
Yeah, well, he acts.
A robot could have played a better Batman than Batfleck.
Sometimes he's okay.
I'm just saying.
I mean, he has good movies. He has bad movies.
What's
like,
another?
like Nicolas Cage, you know. So yeah, he has
You
good
just talked
ones, he has
about the
bad
town.
ones.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, the town's
Affleck was
fine.
one of the best parts of the town.
The
No,
town's
Blake
good.
Lively was one of the best
And,
parts about the town.
True.
And Argo's fine. Like, I mean, he's not
Argo's
great,
okay.
but yeah, Argo's good.
Gone Girl's a
yeah,
freaking
yeah.
amazing movie.
I'm just kidding about Batfleck. I should have chose Matt
Okay.
Damon because none of us like.
No,
Matt
we don't
Damon.
like him.
Matt
So-
Damon.
But here's the thing: we all are in agreement that this is a stupid article to drum up. I think they're way closer to replacing actors with CG characters of themselves than they are with replacing them with robots.
If
Yeah,
they
that's
look
true.
like
the fact
this,
that they're sitting here talking about because of COVID, this may be the new direction. I'm like, look, everybody's on this COVID bandwagon that's in the media. COVID's going to be gone in a year, okay?
Yeah.
Everything's
in
going to be
fact,
back to normal.
one of our other headlines, if we're
stupid.
going to talk about
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, he's not letting COVID keep him out of the films.
The the UK said, you know what? We're going to let people start filming here again. But in order to film here, you have to have a 14-day quarantine so we know you don't have COVID. Except for Tom Cruise, because he's going to make us lots of money.
I think
That's
it's that
right.
South Park episode.
He's a Scientologist. He
Yeah,
can't get sick.
That's exactly what it is. He keeps his,
They've
his mind.
made an
That's
exception
right.
for Tom Cruise, and they've also stated that it'd be a case-by-case basis, but there will probably be other people they make exceptions for. So basically what they're saying is if it's a huge blockbuster
Oh, hell
movie
yeah.
that's going to make tons of money,
Exactly.
you have an exception.
If you're going to come to the UK and spend millions of
Yeah.
dollars making your film, well, then we don't care if you get people
now,
sick.
now, if you're an indie filmmaker
mean,
that
come on.
can't spend a lot of money, then you have to quarantine.
I think this honestly just proves to me how much
I'm
more-
just reading some of the comments. I'm sorry.
You got to read them.
Neil's on here saying this is truly terrifying. Brian said Johnny Five is alive, which is making me want to go watch Short Circuit because that's a good movie.
It is. I think I put it on my Plex.
A way better robot.
Oh yeah, this
Yet
is
again.
great.
Oh.
Kristen said I could use a robot to mow my grass,
So could Brandon.
but the problem is they can't freaking walk. Erica just sits there
Yeah.
with her hands in her lap. She
Oh,
can't
no.
move.
They're working on that.
I bet her
she's
mouth
gonna
doesn't move.
I bet it does.
I bet there's a voice, and I bet her
I
mouth
think
just kind of
that's
goes.
the only thing. That's the only thing
Her-
they got to work.
I'm sure that does. They've had a lot of. I'm saying, they've done a lot of
For a
animatronic heads.
completely different
Yeah.
reason
Yeah.
than making
No,
a film.
but they have I've seen a lot of animatronic robots that they try to make as lifelike as possible, and
Yeah.
all they can do is the facial movement.
I'm sorry, I just had to read some comments.
Oh, no,
But
they're
no.
good.
Let's
They're
get
good.
back
Throw 'em
onto
out there.
Tom Cruise. Don't let me take you away from him.
Anytime we can talk about Tom
We
Cruise.
don't need. I
I
agree
mean, the
with
guy
you.
does his own
Like,
stunts for Christ's
It's
sake.
like he said with the South Park thing. It's like he's just mad because he can't do whatever he wants anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
I just think it's insane because this just proves everybody's theory on people who are in power that just want to keep you from going out to places.
Yeah.
I'm like, obviously, if you're making millions of dollars,
You can do whatever you want.
I'm like,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we can wreck the entire economy, but hey, let's worry about blockbuster Hollywood.
Well, yeah.
And of course, the UK is going to want millions of dollars on their home front to
Bashir's
come
not
in.
on unemployment.
Well,
He's getting paid.
That's
That's
like,
true.
that's
He
like,
don't
it's about
care.
like all these places overseas are trying to stop Americans from traveling because we're the country with the highest COVID rate
Yeah, but
right
we
now.
ain't the ones who
But-
started it.
I know, but my point is that all these countries saying, well, we're going to ban flights from America to our countries because we don't want it to spread, but we're going to allow Tom Cruise to come because he's going to make us
yeah,
money.
I think it's just BS. It's
Heck yeah.
absolute like to
So
me,
basically, it's not about COVID; it's about the money. It's like if
Exactly.
you're poor, we don't want you.
It's about power. It's
They'll
like
let
if there's
him.
a reason to allow it because it somehow is going to benefit us. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, and here's the thing. I have not followed the UK and how they've handled this. I know in certain, European countries, they've done it to where only the, elderly have stayed in quarantine.
Well, that's not the UK. You got to remember they had Brexit.
Brexit.
Breakfast.
They had
They had breakfast.
they had breakfast. They had Brexit,
Tea
so
and-
they're not part of Europe anymore.
No, that's not true. It's not followed
and
through
cookies.
yet. They're
Not
still
yet.
working on it. But the thing is it just I don't know. Again, I have not followed the UK and how
Yeah.
they've handled COVID. This may be well within like what they deem to be necessary.
Yeah.
And I think honestly we can learn from them because truthfully at the end of the day, that's what it really should be about, is what's going to be a net positive at the end of all this COVID shit. And that's going to be the fact that we need an economy that actually is up and running.
Mission Impossible 7.
That's right. If we need somebody to save the American economy, it's Tom Cruise.
I was actually shocked when I read the headline for the article, just because I thought we had already made it past 7 because of how many movies there are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
they're
like,
all the non-numbered
Well, I was
entries.
sitting here thinking, I was like, man, Fast and the Furious has already got 10 films if you include its spinoff. As like Mission Impossible hasn't made it that far yet.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is still better than
Well,
Vin
that's what I'm
Diesel.
saying.
Well, yeah.
He does his own stuff.
Yeah.
He flies the helicopters. He
Yeah.
flies the planes. I
I'm-
can't wait for Top Gun 2. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's going to be legit.
That's going to be great. But
Tom
yes.
Cruise is never going to die. He's a Scientologist. He's living
No.
forever.
Well, and that's the thing. I think they realize. If there's one
Or
healthy
he'll get
person in
taken
the world,
to the mothership.
yeah.
I think it's going to be Tom Cruise. He's the one who can't get COVID. I mean, his Scientology just won't allow it. His brain's too powerful.
Yeah.
You knock that stuff off, he's probably got the cure within his veins. We just need to dissect him.
Man.
Okay.
I mean, that's deep.
Getting deep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been playing a little Last of Us.
It
I'm going. I
happens.
can't help it, you know. All right. Well, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for our topics of the week.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can discuss others.
We were going to discuss something else, but y'all ridiculed me for it. y'all just totally batted that out of the park and said, no, we're not discussing that one.
No.
So that's fine. We're not going
Well,
to.
usually you make all the decisions, so it's nice to win one every now and then.
That's hey, no discrimination. You all are my Tom Cruises, okay? Y'all get special treatment. All right, guys, are we ready to move on then to our unique weekly segment?
I suppose.
Let's do it.
It's story time, where the podcast members tell their stories.
Story time. Story time.
Do we agree on one?
We did.
We did now.
In the middle of that intro, Keith and I said, "Oh yeah, that's what we're talking about." Yeah.
Okay.
So we did figure
Go
it out.
for it.
Keith, you started it.
Okay. Well, Brandon leaned over and he was like, "What was it again?" It's like the only one I remember talking about was the 4th of July hijinks. So
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know.
You love your hijinks.
Well, Sean does too, because I mean, last year I think we did talk about like we did the vices around the 4th, and now we're
Yeah.
gonna do story time around the 4th because it just doesn't get enough love.
True.
Christmas, Halloween, I mean, plenty of other holidays get love, but now it's almost like if you like the 4th, you're evil. So
Well, yeah, especially in America. You know.
no, I mean. Everybody knows, you know, good times with family, 4th of July, and that's what I had, blowing up like bricks and bricks of fireworks. So here's my story time with my nephews, because my nephew Charlie and his wife, they threw a 4th of July shindig at their house, and they bought some fireworks. And I had actually, my parents didn't go, but I had stopped at their house before going, and I kind of ate with them and spent time with them. And then I drove over there, so I got there around 8.
They didn't want to come join the festivities.
And they're old. No.
Wow.
I
What
got
if you
there
could
around.
replace parents with robots?
That would be terrible.
Just saying.
Terrible.
It's gonna happen
One day.
You just wait.
So I get there around 8 because it doesn't get dark till 9. And I park behind everybody because I'm the last one there and there's nowhere else to park. And Hunter comes out. He's like, "You got to move or you could just take me. I was going to go see if there's any fireworks stands still open." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll take you." And he was like, "Yeah, they have fireworks, but like the fireworks they bought only came with a couple firecrackers. And me and Charlie want to set off more firecrackers." I was like, "Yeah, I like to blow crap up. Let's go." So we go down Dixie. And for anybody who knows Dixie Highway, there's a little place called Thornhills that's a dump. But there was a fireworks stand right there in their parking lot.
Well, that's why I was there.
And
That's
everything was on
Every dump
sale
has a fireworks
because
stand.
it was like an hour before dark, and they were just trying to get rid of all their
if you
stuff.
if you got a failed business, there's one thing that will work in Kentucky. That's fireworks.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just saying.
So everything was on sale because it was like an hour before dark, and they just wanted to get rid of everything they had left at the stand. And Hunter goes in and he asks this guy. He says, "Do you have any firecrackers?" He's like, "Yeah." He pulls this box out from his table that's like full of like bricks of firecrackers. And he's like, how many bricks you want? And Hunter looks at it, and there's about 8 or 9 bricks left in this box.
I want
And
them all.
he goes, "I'll take all of them." And this dude's face lit up because it was $50 worth of firecrackers.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And he was like,
instantly gone.
Yeah, he was
that
like-
money's gonna be
yeah.
gone in 2 seconds.
he was like, "Yeah," and he takes it, and we buy it, and we go back to Charlie's house, and me and Charles and Hunter proceed to start lining up all these bricks of firecrackers and lighting them and trying to get them all to go off at once. There was one point where it's so tedious trying to tie them, but we tried to just light the whole brick on fire just to see if it would just explode. Like we put it and walked away. It didn't, sadly.
It didn't ruin them though, did it?
No,
Did it
only
ruin
one pack went off, and nothing happened. Like
Really?
the fire wouldn't spread. That,
Oh,
that
wow.
wax paper, for whatever reason, would not burn. So we were sad. But yeah, I ended up burning my thumb. I
Oh,
don't
hold
even
on,
see
hold
it.
on,
Look
hold
at
on.
that.
I gotta
Look at
punch
that.
it up there.
Gross.
Whoops.
Yeah, burned it.
Ooh, nope, hold that. Ooh.
Look at that. Burnt my
That's why
thumb.
you don't play with fireworks.
Well, I did it on the lighter. It was one of these cheap lighters that you can adjust like the level, and people like will take them off and like.
Yeah.
So it
Yes.
should- yeah. One of the
You
fireworks.
didn't even have one of the longer lighters.
No,
Those are the best.
The Bics are the best.
True.
Bics are the best, but Bics are made in the USA. This
Yeah.
other one said made in China. That's why it burned me.
Probably gave you COVID too.
First
Yeah,
of all,
it did.
every time I flicked it, it wouldn't. I had to flick it twice to light. It would spark and then it would light. And then I was holding it on this fuse, and it would not light. And like literally, Charles came over with another lighter and held it up with mine, and the flames together finally lit it. But I held that flame so long that the lighter got hot, and that's what burned my thumb.
So it wasn't even the fireworks.
yeah, I was
Man.
mad. I was like, stupid Chinese lighter. First they give us COVID, and then they give us, sorry, I had to.
You're
Then they
going
give
on
us
a rant
lighter.
now. Now you're just.
no.
China virus.
Well, it was
Yeah.
the 4th of July. America should have been using Bics.
That was the whole point.
You're blowing up a bunch of fireworks that came from China.
I know.
I mean, they're not made
Exactly.
in
That's,
America.
that's why that firework wouldn't light.
Probably
it was made
why.
in China.
Ripped you off.
What about you, Sean? You got any fireworks hijinks?
I mean, every year we set off fireworks, but honestly, I don't have. I've never been harmed on the 4th of July. Like, I don't understand how people do this stuff, because we blow stuff up and we put things
Yeah.
together that shouldn't be together. And
Here's
when
the
it's all
thing.
done, I throw all the leftover fireworks in a big fire and burn it. And
just-
usually some of the stuff just shoots
Yeah.
shoots, the stuff that didn't go off. Well, it'll go off when you throw it in a bonfire.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
And I just never, I've never really been hurt.
I've never understood like
hijinks,
how
like-
people like hurt themselves with fireworks either. In fact, me and Hunter were laughing about that because I'm not gonna name names, but there's some people that were kind of like they hadn't been around fireworks a
Yeah,
lot,
and they're
so they were
always-
afraid of it, and we were just like, oh, it's not like because like they would they lit a few firecrackers, they'd light it, and they would
Run away.
they would just. Like they wouldn't even light it in their hand. They were so afraid of exploding. They kept trying to light it in the grass. And me and Hunter were like, no, it's got like a couple seconds before it
Just
blows.
you light it and pitch
light
it.
it and you throw.
Yeah.
Like a
Well, I
grenade.
remember actually it was last year. We were at Jacob and Melissa's.
Mhm. Oh, me and you were
yeah,
doing that.
We were doing that.
Yeah.
They had a few at the end of the night, and it was like they had the little screamer things that you light in your hand. You toss them, and then they light up, and some of them scream and all that. And then we had firecrackers that we had to get rid of.
Yeah.
And it's the best part is to light a whole rack of them and just let them just blow up as loud as possible.
Dude, Charles tried to light it. He didn't know they were jumping jacks. He just thought they were firecrackers. So he
Oh,
lit
yeah,
'em
then-
and threw them in the grass.
That'll
And they
snap.
didn't
They don't do
no-
nothing.
They didn't
Yeah.
do nothing because they were in the grass.
did the
And he
same
was, he
thing.
was like,
Yep.
what was
Yeah.
that? And Michelle goes, you lit the jumping jacks.
Gotta do those on concrete,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, that's the only way to make it work.
We had tanks that kept flipping over, too.
Yeah,
they were
those
the
things
cheap-
are trash
They-
now.
They'd
I
light
don't
them and
like
they
the
just
Those
went.
things don't do
The
anything.
Yeah.
tanks are stupid. I always thought they were kind
We
of
don't
cool
waste
when you
our
were
money
little.
on that anymore. We just
Go
go
for
for
the
the
big
big
ones.
rockets and the mortar shells.
Yeah.
The
That's all we
mortars
got.
are the best.
Yes, we had
Those
mortars.
Things are awesome.
Those were the best. That's actually what I burnt my thumb on. Is one of
Neil-
the mortars went in light.
Neil will tell you, because we were live, like FaceTiming with him while some of these fireworks were going off. But me and my dad found these mortar shells that were called canister shells, and I'm not kidding you. They were about the size of a Red Bull can,
Nice.
each one of them.
Holy crap!
That big around and about that long.
Damn.
The little 16-ounce Red Bull
Yeah.
can, and you drop one of them bad boys in there, and the guy at Phantom said it's the highest ordnance that's allowed
That
to
would be
be
allowed.
in a shell,
Wow.
a mortar. And these things were we ended up you get one free, paid like $70 for 6 shells, and then we got another pack free. But dude, these things went up, they blew up low to the ground. Like they're higher than the trees, but a lot lower than you would think.
The typical mortars.
So they
Yeah.
blew up so wide that when you're looking up at them,
You
you,
can't even
literally
see.
had to look from left to right to see all
Wow.
of it. And
That's
the
awesome.
ones that we did last were like red, white, and blue.
That's cool.
And it was insane. But like everybody was going crazy over these, and I'm just like, next year all we're doing is buying those things.
Yep.
And we might only be able to get 20 of them, but
It'll
oh
be worth
my
every
God.
single one of them.
Yes,
will be worth
they
it.
were fantastic.
I will say the mortars in the last couple years. It was 2 years ago. I went down to my brother's, and we lit up some of the mortars, and that was honestly my first time I had experienced them in other places. It was my first time actually loading them and just
Lighting
like
one, running.
and lighting.
Well, we did at the lake that
same
year.
The
That was
same
after,
year,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
what I was gonna say. I loved it because actually that was gonna be my hijinks is we lit them off in that parking lot.
That's true.
And
that
that
one-
was
I'm with
like,
you on that.
That one tipped sideways.
It
That
fell
was
over,
scary.
and it shot almost. We got behind your Jeep.
The Jeep.
and
Yeah.
we just
Sorry,
ducked.
Dad.
We were like, oh crap, go!
Yeah.
And it
tipped
fell
sideways
over.
and just went.
Yes.
And it was still lit too, and we knew it was going
Oh,
off.
it shot. It went off in the parking
yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Luckily, it shot the opposite direction
Yes.
of the
I ain't
Jeep.
gonna let. Okay, here's the thing: when everything is said and done, and you've survived, there's nothing cooler than being in the midst of a mortar blast.
Yeah.
All right, it's like you see the shell and it expands, and it's like I'm in like the Big Bang. It's like it's so cool.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. I think just fireworks are fun.
They are.
I
Well,
yeah, they are.
Obviously, it's like you enjoy them, around the 4th, but a lot of people get pissed whenever they go off for like probably a month at a time.
Well, it's
leading
been 2
up
months
to
this
and-
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody. My mom and dad, they texted me on the 4th, and they said that it was insane. It was like nonstop,
Yeah.
all through the night, and they said they never heard that many fireworks going off in our neighborhood throughout the many years that they lived there.
I was gonna say, for as long as I've like lived, I can't remember, and I don't know because I've only been in my neighborhood. This is only like this actually is the first 4th I've been in my neighborhood, but it just like to hear like the loud mortars and the bang. I mean, it sounds like cannon fire.
Yeah, it
and I'm
does.
like, man, I
kinda
don't remember
fun.
ever like. And I'm okay with it. Like, I mean, celebrate the 4th. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I don't know. That's what it is like a man thing where it's just raw power.
Just-
And it's
We
just
just like to blow
enjoy it.
crap up.
Yeah. Well, and actually that was going to be, kind of a non sequitur to the 4th. But you can do this any time of the year. And that's one of our favorite pastimes, and that's the works bombs. And I
One of
will
our old.
say-
We haven't done that in a
Yeah.
long time.
but I will say
That's illegal.
it's not. Yeah, you shouldn't do it, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
I mean, if you do it in your own
So-
backyard, it's fine. But if you do it and chuck it into other people's yards,
It sounds like a gunshot going off, though.
Mailboxes, garbage cans.
Well,
Yeah.
things that can get destroyed,
True.
you shouldn't probably stick it in.
I do remember we put one under a dead carcass.
yeah,
once.
raccoon.
A
Yeah.
raccoon, just to see if we could blow that up. Stupid.
It did blow up too,
Stupid stuff.
didn't it? It like blew sky high, right?
I
don't remember.
It was right in front of Bobby
I
Nichols.
feel like it
golf
was a little
course.
bit more. I feel like it was. Yeah, it was. It was right from Bobby Nichols.
I just remember when you said the first time you put it in a mailbox, you're like, yeah, it's just gonna blow the door open, and it blew the whole thing off.
blew the bricks off.
Tampering with
one of them bricks
that's a
ones.
federal
I
offense.
know.
Hey,
not
story
gonna say
time.
the address.
Nobody, what are they gonna find our
telling
fingerprints?
you.
Hey, it was
I'm
like
just saying.
what, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
We're like, it's not gonna do
longer.
anything.
I think it was longer than that. We were
Oh,
still
man.
teenagers. So
Oh yeah, we used to
Yeah.
ride around
That
at
was
night
bad.
and
do
just
stupid stuff.
Shake 'em up
and
as
throw 'em.
teenagers are
That's
wont
it.
to do. Yeah.
I mean, my favorite was
the
all.
potato gun. Neil hates the potato gun.
well, that's only because he
We've told that story.
shot his eye
on
out.
here, yeah. But I will say that one of my favorite things was when we would launch the works bomb, and it was at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then we would just drive around the corner of the neighborhood and wait till we heard people come out and be like, "What was that? Did you hear that?" And-
Louder than any mortar.
Oh,
shell.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Those works bombs. Man.
They-
Holy
It's-
crap.
They would. Yeah, they were.
I don't. We did a 2-liter and it didn't go off because it swelled like
It swelled up big.
and it got stuck in like the mailbox we put it
yeah.
in. So
It
we were
swelled that big.
Yeah.
Well, I think we tried because we didn't have any bottles left. We tried a Gatorade bottle and it didn't work.
No,
that
it's
was
too
too
thick.
thick.
Too thick.
Yeah.
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 But a 2
Yeah.
liter and the 20-ounce bottles. Holy
Yeah.
crap.
My gosh. No. Absolutely.
I just remember thinking, man, whoever like, because we didn't want to tamper with it because we didn't want it to blow up. So it's like whoever goes to get their mail the next day is gonna find this huge swollen bottle.
See, now but that one I would have been more worried about because I would have been like, "Oh crap, that is gonna hurt somebody. They're gonna walk up
well,
on
we were
that
young and stupid.
Well, that's the thing. You know, as a teenager,
I never heard no news reports of anybody.
No.
That's true. I think
Nobody
the only
died.
other thing would have been a slingshot,
Yeah.
and that was
That was bad.
I think Neil still got that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he still has a
I think he
slingshot.
still got the
that
slingshot.
That was just a.
I remember we
boys.
stole the Singleton. Well, they were throwing it out anyways, but we took the Singleton's love seat that they were throwing away too.
Don't say that. Don't say what we did.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to say what we did. I'm just saying we took it because I know Neil waited forever for Rick to realize it was gone, and finally I think he said he had to ask. He was like, "Dad,
all right, now we're implicating ourselves.
Yeah.
Now we're telling
Don't
too
go
many
too deep.
details.
Yeah, some of it's gotta stay secret.
Some of it, yeah.
Just when you're little and like a teenager, and you're a guy, you want to blow stuff up sometimes.
Yeah.
It's better than going down to the criminal justice hall and spray painting the windows and stuff. So
Hey, we never put cherry
just
bombs
saying.
in the toilets,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, there you go. We didn't cause too much damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say one thing that pissed me off about 4th of July is we bought this assortment for Sawyer, with little stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it came with these M80s, looks like a third stick of dynamite, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, these things are
gonna be
awesome.
loud.
Yeah. So you light those things, you throw them, and it was like we all laughed, because they went off and they just went they were not real M80s anymore.
Oh yeah.
They weren't the real thing. They just did like a little a pop,
Like for a kid.
terrible.
Something that's not gonna hurt a kid's
Oh no!
ears.
I mean, they had a fuse on them, freaking thick, and they're solid. They felt like they were heavy, you know. And I'm like, man, it's gonna be one of them big loud M60s or M80s, where they used to call them, and nothing. I'm like, what? Where's the real stuff now? Where's the real M80s?
Yeah, you gotta.
Where can you get those?
You got to pay $70
because they weren't. We didn't have them.
You got to pay $70 for those mortar shells. That's all you're
And
gonna
I
get.
thought the firecrackers were garbage too. The
Yeah.
firecrackers that we had, nowhere near as
Well,
loud as they
that's
used
why
to be.
me and Hunter and Charles were setting whole bricks off, was because they
Wolfpack.
weren't. Yeah.
Wolfpack firecrackers.
Yeah.
Those are legit.
Those are good.
By
Those
the
are
way,
legit.
Neil has commented and said that his slingshot is in his bedroom waiting for your oldest son, Sean. So
Oh,
Anytime once he gets
do
to
you
that
still have the
teenage-
rocks too? The decorative rocks.
like the fish tank gravel or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah,
that's
those
what we
are the
had.
best-
Marble.
that's the
Yeah.
best ammo.
Man, those are glass.
Those are man.
Yeah, they were made out of glass.
That's the best ammo there is. But look, you just get into fun times when you're a kid and you're a teenager. So hey,
Sad thing is that was
when
none
you're-
of that was on the 4th of July. That was just every day.
yeah, that was just life.
That
That was
Like,
just
that was
whenever
Saturday.
we
have a good old Kentucky boy.
Saturday night.
You gotta have fun, entertain yourself.
Yeah,
So Sean, whenever your son gets older, you can pass on those.
he does have
hijinks
the
down to him.
decorative rocks.
He's ready then. He's just waiting
ready.
for that slingshot to be handed down.
It's like, here you go.
The passing of time.
Yep.
All right, guys, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. But as always, you can email us right there at the bottom of your screen. Bing, bing. Right there. Maybe that would be the right time for that little, that sound that popped up during our review.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
That was,
Which one was it, Mario?
I don't know. Keith was the one that hit it.
I didn't hear anything.
It never,
It's ruined.
that's
There
it.
it
You got to
is.
wake it up. That's why.
It doesn't. It sleeps too
we
much.
don't use it enough. Remember when we
I'm
first...
as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
He always goes to that one every
I
time.
love that
It is
one.
a good one.
All right, guys, that's right. At the bottom of your screen, RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com. Right?
Right.
Is that right, guys?
Yep, true.
You got
Right
it?
there.
You speak the truth.
Well, I'm on the wide shot now.
Well, fine. Right there.
Oh,
Yes.
nope. Yeah, all over the screen. That's it.
right there. I don't know.
There.
I'm always really bad at that.
All right, guys. Thank you all for watching, as always. And until next time, I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host.
Sean Sebastian.
And...
Oh, I did.
Oh, he messed it up!
Keith Cheatham.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.